Hi, this is Josh Arnett for Children's Literature, doing my reflection recording on this week's reading, the William Allen White Award, and I chose The Boy on the Porch for this week's book, written by Sharon Creech, published in 2013. It is fiction, 151 pages for children ages 8 to 12. And the story of this story is it's about this couple, John and Marta, who live alone on their farm. And one day they find a boy on their porch. The boy's name they find out is Jacob. They find this out because someone's left a note with him saying that he's a good boy and they'll be back for him at some point. The boy, Jacob, doesn't actually talk. They eventually find out that he communicates through sort of this tapping that he does. They also find out that he is very naturally gifted with music and art and that sort of thing. And he just sort of stays with them for a while, exploring the farm, having a good time, painting different things, making different instruments out of different things. And John and Marta become really fond of him, but they realize eventually that, they've got to start looking for where the kid belongs. So they start exploring just around in the areas, and they eventually find a pair of shoes that used to be Jacob's and a place where he used to stay, which turns out to be an abandoned trailer that he doesn't seem to really like at all. And then eventually the boy's father does return, and they have to end up giving Jacob back to his father. And they're really sad to do that. But they take that experience and the love that they've developed for Jacob, and they decide to become foster parents. And they foster a whole lot of children through the years, learning that every child is different, but that they all just need a good place to stay and love, and being able to provide that for them. And they always have sort of in the back of their mind, hoping that Jacob will return one day. And then he does eventually. He sends them a painting of a boy riding a cow, which was one of his favorite things. And they have a little beagle dog following around, and then he shows up on their porch again. I found this book to be kind of interesting in the way that it's written. It's a very sort of sparse. It's on one hand sparse, and on the other hand meandering, where there's not a lot of detail, but there's a lot of conversations that sort of meander and wander a little bit, which really gives the characters a unique voice that I was actually reading in my head as I was reading it out, which I found interesting, but I also thought could be a little frustrating for children who expect more of a faster paced, instant gratification type of scenario. So if I were to have children read this, I think I would recommend it to older children or children who have sort of a higher reading maturity, if that makes any sense, who can understand and appreciate a slower paced scene for what it is and what it's trying to communicate, more of an emotion and feeling than a strong sense of moving the plot forward. Certainly the mystery of finding out where this boy came from and exactly what was going on kept me interested in reading through, and that carries you through most of the book. And then having become connected to the couple made me want to read to the end and see if the boy ever came back. It also reminded me in some ways of the movie August Rush, which is about a boy who I think is on the autism spectrum, has sort of those quirks, but is very talented in music. And then, so it sort of reminded me of that situation, comparing Jacob to the boy August Rush in that movie. So in that respect, I liked the representation of Jacob as someone who may be on the autism spectrum, or maybe a child who has come from an abusive situation and may not, open up necessarily to adults, but goes and plays with animals, or just any sort of situation like that. I thought it was a good representation, and that those elements were there, and they did have an effect. But like we learned about in our textbook, it doesn't just focus on those aspects. He has all of these other things that make him a complete person. So he's not just the autistic kid. He's a kid who has these quirks, but is also very gifted musically, and is very friendly and not outgoing, but very friendly and caring towards other people. The strategy or activity I came up with is based off of this scene early on in the book where Jacob and Marta, they find these cans and this ladder, and Marta sort of sets him up on this fence, starts tapping on with a stick, and because the boy, Jacob, likes tapping on things, and so he starts tapping on and begins making all these cool sort of rhythmic things. So I thought it'd be fun to have students come up with creative musical instruments, different things that they could use, and tie that in with math concepts of rhythms and patterns, going into some really basic music theory if you wanted to. Be able to tie in, what they're reading with the math side of things and helping them to relate to this character a little bit more. So those are my thoughts on The Boy on the Porch. Looking forward to seeing what you all read this week.